The story begins at a school where students are gathering to donate blood. Some volunteers ask Nurse Kim if it's her first time at this school, and she replies that this place is tough because many people want to donate blood. So it's like these kids come here more often than in other schools. She wonders if that isn't strange, since nowadays kids don't even try to donate, and her colleague responds that it's very sweet. The students line up for the ambulances, but there's another line where students ask how much a blood donation certificate pays, and it was 5,000 won. People decide to trade there, exchanging a 5,000 won gift card for a blood donation certificate. The guy behind the box pays people with the certificates, paying 10,000 won to one man, and to that boy, it was a business. Buying gift cards for 10,000 won. People thought he was losing money, but his real goal was the blood donation certificate. The hidden value of the certificate was usually 12,000 won, and when he sells them for 10,000 won, people in need of transfusions flood his messages. But the reason no one else sells them is because it's a crime. However, for a minor like him, if caught, he'd only get a warning. Violence, theft, fraud, and even prostitution. They can't punish with serious crimes. He had a total of 60,000 won there, thinking that the police didn't care about victimless cases like this. But that didn't mean his work was easy. A man kicks him in the face, throwing him to the ground along with all the certificates. Committing a crime also meant becoming a target for other crimes. Those who also commit crimes don't get excuses, they get no sympathy, and they can't even retaliate, as a blonde guy asks how much money Minsu made today. Minsu curses them, saying no one would protect him anyway. Some posters about rehabilitation laws are spread around the city, and the delinquents say those are just empty words from people who do nothing. However, a horrible smell invades the scene and the delinquents complain. The blonde guy asks why they're judging him since men can fart while smoking. Besides, he says the smell is better than cigarettes, with the boy lying under his feet. Asking if Minsu made money but didn't pay the tax, that Chong-soo went to the rehab center and now he's acting like a fool. Minsu replies that he's nothing without Chong-soo. The blonde guy asks if he knows that Chong-soo is 100 times scarier than him, but that he'd heard something, because Chong-soo was getting out today. Jo Chong-soo, the leader of a young cartel in that area, everyone suffered because of him, but no one could call themselves victims, because if they did, they'd be afraid of retaliation from his uncontrollable power. Wondering if Chong-soo was really getting out of the rehab center today, Minsu tells him to show some respect because Chong-soo wasn't his buddy, while the blonde guy says that bastard was acting this way because he was getting out. The blonde guy says he doesn't want to see Chong-soo's bad side because it would be great to have peace as always. Minsu takes something out of his bag, and the man asks what he's doing, so he decides he'll hand it over to him, but asks what they're doing and why they don't take it, showing his middle finger and telling those bastards to go to hell. The blonde guy calls him a piece of shit, furious, and kicks him, asking if it was some kind of joke, asking if now that Chong-soo wasn't there, nothing scared him, but warns that tonight he's going to take that bastard's life, though his friends try to warn him about the rehab center. He says it's nothing, and after some time, he'll just walk out, and for no. The blonde guy always made Minsu tremble with fear when he saw him, instead of Chong-soo, but he's struck in the waist. His friends are stunned, because a sneaker just kicked the blonde guy. Minsu is shocked too, catching his attention, as a man says there can't be school violence, then helps Minsu and asks if he's okay, while people whispered that this was the student council president. The blonde guy grabs a shovel, saying he'll take his life and head to the rehab center today, while the president just repeats about taking someone's life as he hits him again, grabbing the blonde guy's shoulder and slamming him to the ground while asking if he's ever taken someone's life before, if he could really handle that. The blonde guy asks what he's doing since he didn't say he'd take his life, just that he hit him. His friend charges toward the president, asking who he thinks he is to interfere and if he wants to go to hell, but the president simply dodges the delinquent's punch and slaps him across the face right after. Another overweight friend asks if he really thought it would be easy just because he's the student council president and tries to punch the man, but he simply ducks, dodging the blow, and grabs his wrist while reflecting on how easy it is. Then he throws the fat guy to the ground. The president walks toward the other delinquent, who nervously prepares his fist and begs him not to come closer, saying he was only pretending to attack, repeating for him to wait and stay away while shaking in fear. Minsu stands up in the middle of all this, sighing deeply at the whole situation. He repeats that there should be no violence in school, and asks what Kang Yu-seong wants with all this. Yu-seong asks how he could say something like that instead of thank you, brother. Minsu repeats the word brother, saying he's not his brother anymore and should stay out of his business since he shouldn't get close to trash if he doesn't want to get dirty. Yu-seong says he's not trash, he's his brother, and no matter what he thinks, they'll always be brothers. Minsu says that either way, he should just get rid of that watch. His brother looks at his wrist and asks why. Minsu says he was adopted by a rich family, so he should have a new watch by now, because that one is making him embarrassed, but Yu-seong asks what's wrong with it, and also asks about his brother's class, but Minsu says he's going home. Yu-seong thinks he really should change that watch. On his way home, Minsu wonders why he even got involved, because if he hadn't entered the school because of him, his brother, Kang Yu-seong, the student council president and pre-admitted to Korea's medical university, and him, Lee Minsu, the biggest troublemaker in school. They were blood brothers, and his brother's original name was Lee Hyun-soo, but now he was adopted by a rich family and is called Kang Yu-seong. While the boy stops in the middle of the road, because he's still there in front of the penguin orphanage. His brother shouldn't get involved with him anymore because he doesn't want to drag him down. He would walk his golden path while Minsu must find his own. In that old discarded wardrobe, that was his way of living. The hard-earned money he had saved up totaled 340,000 won. Minsu repeats that he's 660,000 won short of reaching 1 million. The next blood donation truck would come in 3 months, and he wonders if he should go to another school to sell. In 2 years, he'll be kicked out of the orphanage, and the government will give him 5 million won, but that won't even be enough for a deposit. He wonders if he should get a part-time job, but no one wants to hire an underage orphan like him. He knows it's a crime, but it's the only way to get money quickly, because he doesn't want to bring his brother down any further. He shuts his locker afterward, but the blonde guy is behind him, smiling, saying his Minsu is loaded, and asks if he wants to hear something funny, because if he gets caught making money through crime, the government will take it all back, and he starts laughing. Minsu asks what he wants, but the blonde guy asks if he didn't already tell him that just seeing him would be enough to make him tremble with fear. In the middle of a classroom, Yu-seong is taking notes from his studies, but the teacher tells everyone to be quiet and sit down, announcing that Jo Chang-soo, who had been in the rehabilitation center, had returned, and from what he'd seen, they should help him readjust. The students gossip that Chang-soo wouldn't change and that the rehabilitation period wasn't long enough. But a wheelchair approaches the classroom, and all the students are completely shocked, even Yu-seong. Jo Chang-soo, leader of the youth cartel and an unstoppable force, was in a wheelchair, completely frail. He starts laughing for no reason, and then wets himself. People ask what's wrong with Chang-soo this time. The Juvenile Rehabilitation Act and the repealed law that now sends juvenile offenders to military rehabilitation centers for training. The rehabilitation lasts until they're fully mentally rehabilitated. Near the penguin orphanage, people are shouting for others to step back. Civilians ask what happened there, and a police officer says someone lost their life, causing a traffic jam throughout the area. The driver says there was an accident up ahead and traffic was bad, so he'll be late for class. Yu-seong repeats about the accident because it happened at the orphanage where he had lived, suddenly noticing something on the ground. The driver asks why the young master is opening the door all of a sudden, but Yu-seong just stares at the ground. Because there was his brother's broken watch, he panics upon seeing it. A body was covered, and people said it was one of the children from the orphanage. Yu-seong tries to approach, asking the civilians to step aside, calling for his brother multiple times, but then going into shock. Under Article 243 of the Juvenile Rehabilitation Act, this minor was being arrested at the crime scene. From that moment on, the identity of the minor would be managed by the rehabilitation center. In the middle of a courtroom, inside the rehabilitation court of the juvenile center, a judge slams the table forcefully, shouting that he was unqualified, because Lee Minsu showed no signs of remorse and shouldn't forget he was there on a murder charge. Minsu tries to say he didn't take anyone's life, and kept repeating it several times, but no one listened to him. The judge mutters that he keeps lying, and asks how he explains the fingerprints and the blood on that brick, wanting to know about the other crimes he committed too, which he also denied. He's seen many like him, blaming circumstances, family, and their situation because they are unqualified. When things don't go their way, they pretend to be victims and don't feel genuine remorse, while people in the courtroom think the judge looked truly angry. Because if you take the life of someone who chased you or stole your money, or simply because you don't like them, this world would be submerged in corpses, and he needs to learn this lesson now. If someone bothers you, you should ask an adult for help, because in the end, the reason he committed crimes was because he didn't believe in adults. Lee Minsu, under Article 28 of the Rehabilitation and Reform Act, was sentenced to the Juvenile Detention and Rehabilitation Center. On a bus, some youths complain about the huge distance between the city and the detention center. Some officers joke with each other because they have good voices, but they'll have to wait just a bit more, because they'll have plenty of time to work soon. The delinquents on the bus wonder what's going on, and if they really slept there. Seeing that there's a girl pressing a shovel into the ground with her sneaker, the officers tell the girls to stop staring and to dig deeper, while the delinquents say it's been a while since they smelled a woman, and divide among themselves which girl each would take. But the officer inside the bus says that's the girls' detention center, and their own is being built on the other side. One of the delinquents complains he can't sleep without girls, while Minsu stares at the floor of the bus, thinking that even when he tells the truth, no one believes him, and so they enter the center, with the gates closing, sealing their sentence. The officers tell the delinquents to line up, but they refuse, and one even asks for cigarettes. That delinquent keeps asking for cigarettes, but the officer says minors aren't allowed to smoke. He keeps demanding a cigarette so he won't punch the officer, while Min-soo steps off the bus, noticing something different as some people shout in unison. It was an entire unit of delinquents running out of breath while shouting, calling out for pigs over and over. The new delinquents are shocked by this, but start laughing, saying these idiots are hilarious and look like pigs running. An officer turns around, noticing something strange, removing his foot from the ground, and shouting for the delinquents to stop. The newcomers ask what's going on and what he's talking about, but the man keeps calling for backup. That unit snaps their legs together, standing at attention, waiting for their superior's command. An officer yells that with respect to the director, they should give their salute. The unit does so, saluting the unit director. The newcomers keep laughing at the delinquents and officers, but the director signals the squad to stand at ease. The delinquents complain they hate all this military stuff. However, the director smiles upon seeing it, commanding his unit to bow. The delinquents mockingly ask if they're supposed to kneel to him, but the unit of delinquents slams their heads to the ground, bowing in submission to their lord. The newcomers wonder why they knelt, and if they even know about youth rights. That director points and says they've got a bunch of brats this time. The unit shouts for their director, who announces they have 10 minutes to turn these brats into pets. One of the delinquents complains about being called a brat and says he'll shut that damn mouth of his, but he's met with a punch. Min-soo wonders what that was, because those guys were effortlessly beating up the delinquents. The army of delinquents keeps advancing while the freshmen think they're insane. They decide to run while the army charges forward. One of the freshmen gets kicked in the stomach, while another is hit with a punch to the gut. The delinquents continue beating the freshmen. That director says he loves seeing pigs like that, and for now, they're not pigs anymore, but slaves, because now they can speak human words. The delinquent army shouts loudly that yes, they understand, saluting and bowing in thanks to the director, while Min-soo watches all of it, wondering what kind of situation this is, because in a mess like this, pretending to be defeated was the best strategy. Only that way could he make it through this, and many would be busy dealing with the others. The freshmen run forward asking for help, while Min-soo thinks that running like that will only make them targets. The officers try to warn them not to go there. Min-soo reflects that if they really wanted to help, they would have done so from the start. A cop hits a delinquent on the back of the neck with a baton, saying he told him not to get closer, but he hates being annoyed when people don't listen. They stomp on the delinquent while complaining that they hate having to hit people, and he forced them to do it. It was like a survival intimidation tactic, with exaggerated movements and far from any vital spots, a type of violence not meant to kill. It's natural that most people don't want to become murderers, even him, but the director appears in front of him, saying he's sharp, because he got there disoriented but still fell for a stupid trick. Min-soo apologizes, but the director steps on his face, saying there's no need to apologize, and that he likes smart rats like him, and from now on he's a rat, so he should keep entertaining the director, who even corrects his scream of pain into a squeak. The director turns to a police officer, saying that things should be put in order now, and the man tells all the freshmen to take off their clothes. So they're left naked, kneeling in a line. The director smiles and says no. They'll begin the real training. In hotel room 106, someone rings the bell. Yu-seong asks if anyone's home. With no response, he says it's 2 p.m., the perfect time for someone to be out. So he pulls a pair of scissors from his suit, opening the doorknob slowly using the scissors, and manages to unlock the door. The young man says excuse me and announces that he's coming in. When he was younger, he and his brother used to break into empty houses all the time. Min-soo kept watching the hallway while he stole anything valuable inside, and before the police could catch them and take them back to the orphanage, they spent years breaking into homes. As a result, they could clean out an entire house in just 5 minutes. Yu-seong thinks he didn't expect to be doing this kind of thing again nowadays. Then he opens the bedroom door, saying not to worry because he's not there to steal anything, he just wants answers. His brother had gone to that place too. Chang-soo is tied to the bed, moaning over and over while sweating cold in fear, saying he soiled himself. Yu-seong asks what kind of place the detention center is that left him like that, because they say he fell and hit his head, but he doesn't have any broken bones or visible injuries. He used to be so terrifying that even the police didn't want to go near him. But looking at him now, Yu-seong presses Chang-soo's head against the bed, complaining that it was only 4 weeks for him, but his brother might never get out, so Chang-soo needs to get his head straight and answer him. Yu-seong notices something strange afterward. Chang-soo is screaming about electricity and how it hurts, but he's wrong. The young man complains that coming there was a waste of time, but he notices something else. On Chang-soo's chest, there was a red mark. Inside the detention center, they were branding the delinquents with the letter B, letting the ink run down their bodies, All the delinquents kneel as they're branded. The director lists their crimes and gives him a C rank, saying this time they only had boring little punks. But finally he finds something interesting, saying his eyes weren't wrong, and congratulates the rat Lee Min-soo, because he's more violent than he looks, and is the only A rank in this group, so he'll get some special time there. At Yeonji Girls' High School, some girls are walking toward the classroom, but one of them notices something strange. Blushing, she tells her friend to stop eating and look over there. Yu-seong was sitting and reading a book. The girls comment that he's ridiculously handsome. One girl walks up and says it's been a while since she saw him, even though it was actually the first time they'd met, and another friend says they should start getting to know each other now. The girl asks if he's a trainee too, and if he wants to follow her on social media. Yu-seong just stares at the girls, saying it's unfortunate because he doesn't use Instagram, and the girls freak out because his smile is beautiful. Yu-seong asks if he can ask them a question, saying that he's looking for someone named Gus Semin, and her friend asks if it's that one. That crazy girl right there, holding a motorcycle helmet in her hand. She had just gotten out of the rehabilitation center. The two girls complain that Semin was staring over here and that this psycho had sharp hearing. That masked girl asks about those sneaky stares. Yu-seong stands face to face with Semin. The girl asks where he's going. He just says he wants to know about the rehabilitation center, but Semin tells him to leave. Walking away from Yu-seong, the boy takes a deep breath right after, saying that his younger brother was there. Semin's expression goes blank upon hearing that. Continuing on her way without caring, Yu-seong sighs, saying maybe he was too direct and should try to get closer better next time. But Semin calls out to him. A helmet comes flying in his direction. Yu-seong catches it by pure reflex, while Semin tells him to get on the bike, because this wasn't the place to talk about that. She starts the engine to leave. Yu-seong asks what made her change her mind, while Semin says her brother was locked up there too. The boy wants to know what kind of place the juvenile rehabilitation center really is. Semin stays silent for a few seconds, trying to say that it was the very embodiment of hell. The director says only 3 hours have passed, and they're going to start the next training session, while Min-soo wonders when this will end, because they're supposed to start squat jumps, and the squad makes pig noises. The officers shout that on 1 they should say pig, and on 2 they should make the sound, and so they respond, starting to move with their jumps. Min-soo makes a rat noise while pulling on his ears, cursing the situation in his head because only 3 hours had passed, but it felt endless. The director enjoys the situation with his ear, saying that the animal noises sound so nice, but he notices a groan amid the noise. A blonde delinquent had collapsed on the ground, while officers stomp on him because he should get up. That boy says his stomach hurts really badly and asks to use the bathroom. The officers complain that this is all he could take, while Min-soo reflects on how they're beating him just for needing the toilet. But the director approaches, saying he probably held it for a long time before asking and shouldn't worry, just get up. The delinquent just looks up. Then the director squats down and looks at him, saying that this is tough, but asking if anyone else wants to use the bathroom. Min-soo says they're being punished together, but now they want to leave. The officers correct the group and ask if anyone else wants to go to the bathroom, and if not now, they won't be allowed until training ends, and the rest must continue training. Min-soo wonders if they're really going to let them go, and with a system this unfair, maybe they should just get out of here. One delinquent says it's brilliant because if they keep doing this, training days will end soon, thinking they're trying to find a way to stop training. Min-soo reflects that something about this is suspicious. The director asks if any more life forms want to join the group because it's a rare opportunity, and Min-soo wonders how they're letting people go so easily. Unconditional kindness was like a nameless fruit in the forest. Min-soo looks coldly because the sweeter and more tempting something is, the stranger it feels, and so he raises his hand, saying that more carefully and aesthetically he should approach. Min-soo says he doesn't need to go anymore and wants to continue the training. The officer grabs his neck, asking if they're joking and if this is some kind of prank on him. Min-soo says he suddenly used his muscles and his stomach froze for a moment. So the officer tells him to go back to the group because he's keeping an eye on that rat. A delinquent starts laughing, saying he's an idiot. Min-soo reflects that they're treating them like animals, but they give bathroom breaks, and animals don't use bathrooms, only humans do. The officer shouts that everyone who needs the bathroom is right there. So the director says that both humans and animals need to relieve themselves, and it must be hard to hold it in. Therefore, they were dismissed for 30 minutes. The delinquents laugh, mocking the fools, but the director asks what they're laughing at, because he was dismissed, not all of them. All the delinquents are shocked to hear that. Then the director announces that from now on, there'll be a human centipede. Min-soo reflects on centipedes, an arthropod belonging to the class Chilopoda, with 15 pairs of legs in the basic form, but some species can have up to 177 pairs, a creature below humans and animals. The officer orders them to place their legs on each other's shoulders and raise their arms, because if they fall, they'll get extra time. They were worse than pigs, inferior beings that couldn't even control basic body functions. For creatures like them, using a bathroom was a luxury. The director claps his hands, saying they were useless insects, and made a bathroom for them, giving them everything they wanted. And if it didn't hurt, they should hurry up and do their business. One delinquent was nearly unconscious, but collapses to the ground as the officer beats him, asking what he was staring at, since it's only been 3 hours. Then he throws water on the delinquents, because just 3 hours ago, these savage, terrifying monsters had turned into pets, timidly trying to dodge punishment, wondering if the day was already over. An alarm sounds shortly after. The director orders them to clean up and head back into the center, and the officers should feed the animals their rations. Everyone there salutes the director as he walks away. Inside a cafeteria, Minsa receives a plate of food scraps, thinking there was nothing edible there, and also wondering why they were eating on the floor and if it was because they were animals, but at the very least, they should get utensils. The officer says that for now they're going to sing the song of gratitude, and orders them to start now. Some begin singing that they are not humans but dogs and pigs. They eat whatever is given and obey orders, thankful for being cursed at and beaten. Minsa thinks this is truly inhumane because they really do see them as animals. The boy falls silent, thinking it's fine, whether he's a life form or not. He's going to endure this, and so he eats with his hand, because he'll endure anything to get the hell out of there no matter what. Semin parks her motorcycle on a bridge. Yu-seong notices something in that scenery. It's the Juvenile Rehabilitation Center, and he can see it from there. The girl says she goes there every day because she keeps thinking about her brother. Yu-seong says his brother is awaiting trial and will probably end up there soon, and asks if she really thinks that place is hell, to which Semin replies that hell must be better, because that place isn't for humans. Semin pulls a cigarette from her mouth, saying she has nightmares every day about what happens there and can't sleep without pills. But he must really love his brother to have come to see her. Yu-seong says that when their mother passed away, she asked him to protect his brother, but in the end, he couldn't. And that's why he came to her. It's too late to try and fix things. Of all the people who came out of that place, she's the only one who seemed okay. The girl asks if he wants her to tell him how she survived in the rehabilitation center. Yu-seong wonders how she came out of that place in one piece, but she makes a crazy face, saying she pretended to be an idiot, and she was serious. Yu-seong says he's not joking and asks her to tell him. The girl looks straight ahead, saying again that she's not joking. She ties her hair back, startling Yu-seong when he sees something: the scars on her head. Semin says that place had the craziest bastards in the country, and when tempers flared, fights would explode. But it was full of unimaginable lunatics, and she never thought they'd pour hot oil on her head. Yu-seong apologizes, saying he didn't know she went through all that, and tells her she doesn't have to say anything else. Semin says that acting like an idiot got her released earlier, and she probably won't be of much help to him, but she kicks his shoulder, telling him to fix that look on his face and not to pity her. Yu-seong bumps her foot, telling her to move, and the girl laughs, saying that earlier he asked about the mark, and he didn't seem to know anything, but she'll explain, because after the induction ceremony for both boys and girls, they get a bath, a meal, and some clothes. Minsu quickly puts on a jacket, thinking that, to prevent escape, a GPS-equipped collar was locked around their necks. He complains that the clothes were terrible, and this thing on his neck. The officers tell them not to get distracted and to stay in line. After receiving their items, they are given a room, where juvenile offenders are categorized by the severity of their crimes, and their room is assigned based on that. For example, an E room is for simple assault, D for drugs, C for theft and fraud, and B for aggravated assault. So Yu-seong's brother will definitely get an A room, because that's for criminals who committed murder or equivalent offenses, just like the boy's brother, who had committed a murder. Minsa takes a deep breath as he enters the room, with 4 people already inside: 2 muscular guys with bulging veins, a delinquent with earrings, and a long-haired man staring. Minsa thinks things are quiet and wonders if this is a standoff. He can't turn back now. One of the delinquents asks if this bastard doesn't know how to introduce himself, wanting to know where he's from and what brought him here. Minsa reflects that this is a background check standoff and says he came from Penguin Orphanage and attends Songrek School. The delinquents laugh, saying that's an elite path and they know a guy from Songrek. But the long-haired man tells everyone to shut up, wanting to know what brought him there, and if he's in room A, he must have caused some serious trouble. Minsa thinks this guy must be the leader. He says he's there for murder. The delinquents break out in cold sweat, whispering that they finally got someone who took a life in there. Minsa reflects that he's the only murderer there. He thought they grouped people with similar crimes, but murder is the worst, and he wonders if crime severity determines power there. The earringed delinquent laughs, saying their dog is doomed because he'll stay stuck as the newbie. Minsa thinks that guy may be the leader, but even so, he's still the youngest. However, he notices that the one sitting in the chair is a white-haired delinquent, groaning in pain from having to endure that weight. The long-haired one stands up, saying it's annoying, while the orange one keeps stepping on the chair, asking if he wants to fight someone who took a life instead of staying the youngest. Minsu thinks nothing changes. Weak people are bullied both outside and inside, and if they think they can walk over him, he'll make sure he's treated like a murderer. At 7 p.m., it's time for reflection essays, where kids at the juvenile center have to write 10 letters every day. Minsu thinks he didn't kill anyone and wonders what he's supposed to write, but a paper ball is thrown at him. 2 of the delinquents are playing with paper balls like it's baseball. Minsu asks if they're not supposed to write reflection letters too. The delinquent asks why he's getting irritated about that, since their dog is going to write everything for them anyway, and Minsu should leave it to the dog too, asking what's up with the dog for him to get up without writing, while the guy says he needs to use the bathroom. The delinquent tells him to go handle his business. Minsu reflects that there are no human rights in the reformatory, only the guards treat them like animals. The boy was doing his business, but a foot approaches, because in this place without guards, the law of the jungle rules, kicking the white-haired boy and asking if he can really do that like a human. No one will protect him, and if you're weak, you're prey. The delinquent tells him to act like the dog he is, and if he wants to do that, he better hurry, but to survive he needs to be strong, or at least look strong. The boy really looks like a dog, and if he can't do that, everything ends as if he were just another animal to the strongest. At 8 p.m., it's bath time. Each person gets 3 minutes to bathe, using only water and soap. That soap was full of hair. They were sharing it with 50 people, and it was already this bad. The guards arrive for bed inspection. The delinquents respond in numbers from 1 to 3. Minsu replies that he's number 5, while the dog makes a sound instead of giving a number. The boy is impressed by that. Then the officer grabs his baton and hits the dog on the head with force, striking him on the head multiple times, yet the notebook remains untouched. The dog keeps crying after that. Minsu thinks that after the count, the lights go out. At 10 at night, the day ends with sleep. Minsu hears some sounds of crying, because the white-haired boy was crying a lot. One of the delinquents asks who's crying like a human, and the boy goes quiet, holding his mouth so he wouldn't make noise while crying. Minsu just closes his eyes. That's how he spent his first night in the reformatory. At 5:30, morning cleaning and roll call begin again. Minsu cleans the floor together with the dog, and so the morning starts very early. At 6, breakfast is served. After roll call, meals are distributed under the door. The group gets a few portions of food. Minsu asks why they don't eat in the cafeteria, but the delinquents explain it's because of the afternoon training, and Minsu thinks that at least this time, they got spoons. But then he asks where the dog is and why he isn't eating. The delinquents look down, saying he's right underneath, but it's a human table. Minsu tells them to feed him while he works, while the delinquents ask why he's so concerned, since he treated the dog like a friend. They gather all the scraps of what they ate, and aim everything with care, finishing the dog food. Minsu looks at it, impressed. The delinquents tell the dog to eat it immediately. As the boy starts crying again, the dog gets ready to eat it, but Minsu kicks the table, yelling at him not to eat that. Then the delinquents curse at him in shock. Minsu asks if he's just a dog, calling out the name Moon Hyun-jun. The long-haired one says this place has its own hierarchy and rules, and if he came in late, he has to follow the rules, and if he doesn't like it, he can fight until he becomes the leader. But to do that, he needs to defeat the dog first, since he has the higher rank. If he loses, he'll become the new dog, and Minsu says this is the damn hierarchy game. But it's so childish to do this. And seriously, these guys come here after causing trouble, but don't let go of that mindset. However, Kanjun hits him on the head several times. The delinquents say the dog is doing well, and the killer should fight back. Minsu reflects that he knows he's losing while he's down. But Moon Hyun-jun is crying, so Minsu wonders how he could fight back in a moment like that. Meanwhile, at the Penguin Orphanage, a woman stands outside, asking if the boy is joining the army tomorrow and if he packed everything he needs. Yu-seong agrees with Director Mom, since he and his brother's treasures are all packed. The director says they were the biggest delinquents in the orphanage, especially Yu-seong, who used to beat up the other kids easily. The boy asks if it was really like that, while the director remembers how the kids used to be afraid of him. Yu-seong smiles and says about that, she's got a memory error, because it's true that he fought the kids. Moon slaps Minsu in the face while apologizing, while the delinquents stomp on his face, saying he's a weakling, not a killer, and that's why Minsu's parents abandoned him. Yu-seong says the kids weren't afraid of him. While Minsu strikes the delinquent in the head, his brother remembers that the kids were afraid of his brother because clearly he's better at fighting. Moon keeps whimpering when he sees this, while the delinquents are completely stunned. The room leader looks furious. Minsu was truly terrifying for being insane, because when that bastard loses his mind, no one can stop him. Minsu declares that from now on, everyone will be his dogs.